Something big is happening right now in global power, but it's not on the headlines, it's not being discussed on the news, and by the time most people notice it, the balance of the world will already have shifted. Throughout history, global power has never collapsed overnight. It always shifts quietly, through money, through influence, through decisions made far from public attention. And today, we are watching one of those moments unfold. Global power does not move the way most people imagine. It doesn't shift when a president gives a dramatic speech. It doesn't change the moment a war begins. And it certainly doesn't collapse the day headlines declare a crisis. Those moments are only the visible surface of something much deeper. Real power moves long before the world is told to pay attention. It moves quietly, through systems most people never see and never question. Through financial structures, trade dependencies, regulatory decisions and strategic agreements, negotiated far from public scrutiny. History has always followed this pattern. Empires didn't lose dominance because they were suddenly defeated. They lost it because their influence slowly weakened while appearing strong on the surface. Their control mechanisms eroded, even as their symbols remained intact. The illusion of stability is one of the most powerful tools in global politics. As long as people believe the system is solid, it continues to function, even when its foundations are already shifting. This is why power transitions rarely feel urgent while they are happening. They feel normal. Markets adjust. Policies are updated. Alliances are rebalanced. Each change appears isolated. Each decision seems technical. Each move feels temporary. But when viewed together, these adjustments form a clear direction. Power does not disappear. It relocates. It moves from one structure to another, from one center of influence to the next. And once this movement reaches a certain point, reversing it becomes impossible. The most important thing to understand is this. By the time the shift becomes obvious, it is already complete. The public reaction always comes too late. Debates start after decisions are finalized. Warnings appear after outcomes are locked in. This is not because people are uninformed. It is because the system is designed to make transitions invisible until they are irreversible. Today's world is experiencing exactly this kind of silent movement, not driven by chaos, but by calculation, not accelerated by panic, but by strategy. And those who understand how power truly moves don't wait for confirmation. They watch the patterns, they follow the flow, and they prepare long before the shift becomes undeniable. Money has never been just a tool for buying and selling. It has always been a mechanism of power. Long before nations fought wars on battlefields, they fought them through control of resources, trade routes, and currency. Because whoever controls money controls behavior. Money decides what is possible. It defines who can act freely and who must ask permission. And more importantly, it determines who sets the rules and who must follow them. Throughout history, global power has always been supported by a dominant financial system. Not necessarily the strongest economy, but the most trusted one. Trust is the real currency. When nations, corporations, and institutions trust a financial system, they build their future around it. They hold reserves in it. They trade through it. They depend on it. But trust is fragile. It doesn't collapse suddenly. It erodes quietly through small signals that most people ignore. A policy change here, a restriction there. A new condition added under the name of security or stability. Individually, these decisions appear reasonable. Collectively, they begin to change behavior. When trust weakens, money starts to move, not in panic but in preparation. Capital flows shift toward alternatives. Trade agreements are rewritten. New financial channels are explored quietly, without public announcements. This movement is never explained openly because explaining it would accelerate it. Instead, the narrative remains calm. Officials speak of resilience. Markets speak of adjustments. Experts speak of cycles, but beneath that surface the logic is simple. Money seeks safety, and safety follows power. Right now, unprecedented amounts of capital are repositioning globally, not because of one crisis, but because of a long-term reassessment of risk and control. This does not mean the current system is collapsing. It means it is being questioned, and the moment a system is questioned, its dominance is no longer absolute. power does not shift the day money leaves. It shifts the day confidence changes. And confidence once lost is almost impossible to fully restore. That is why financial movements matter more than political speeches, why currency decisions matter more than elections, and why the future balance of global power is already being shaped, quietly, through money. The word collapse suggests chaos. It implies a sudden breakdown, panic in the streets, and systems failing all at once. But history shows that most global transformations do not happen that way. What we are witnessing today is not a collapse, it is a transition. Transitions are quieter, slower, and far more controlled than collapses. They don't destroy systems overnight. They reshape them from the inside. During a transition, institutions continue to function, markets continue to operate, governments continue to speak the language of stability. On the surface, everything appears normal. But beneath that surface, priorities change. Incentives shift. Rules are reinterpreted. A transition does not announce itself, because announcing it would destabilize the very system guiding it. Instead, it unfolds through incremental decisions that appear technical rather than political. Policies are adjusted temporarily. Frameworks are updated for efficiency. Emergency measures quietly become permanent structures. Each step seems rational. Each decision appears isolated. But together, they redirect the flow of power. This is how global systems evolve, not by breaking but by bending, not by collapsing but by adapting to new realities. The danger of a transition is that it feels uneventful while it is happening. People wait for a dramatic signal, a crash, a declaration, a visible turning point. But transitions do not provide closure. They provide continuity under new rules. By the time the public realizes the system has changed, they are already living inside the new version of it. History is filled with moments like this, periods where the old order still existed in name but no longer in function, where power had already moved, even though symbols remained the same. Those who misunderstand transition wait for collapse. Those who understand it prepare early. Because once a transition is complete, there is no return to the previous balance. There is only adjustment. The world is not ending its current system. It is quietly rewriting it, and the most important changes are happening without spectacle, without panic, and without permission from public opinion. That is why recognizing transition matters more than predicting collapse. Because collapse is loud, but transition decides the future. Every shift in global power creates imbalance before it creates stability. There is no transition without redistribution, no change without consequence. When power moves, it does not affect all nations equally. Some gain influence quietly, others lose relevance without ever announcing defeat. This is not because of morality or fairness, it is because power follows structure. Countries that control resources, trade access, financial channels, and strategic partnerships adapt faster. They position themselves where influence is growing, not where it once existed. Others remain attached to systems that are losing effectiveness. They defend frameworks built for a world that no longer functions the same way. At the national level, this creates clear winners and losers. But the effects do not stop there. Individuals feel these shifts long before they understand them. Prices change, jobs move, opportunities concentrate in fewer places. People often blame governments, corporations, or markets, but these are symptoms, not causes. The deeper cause is structural change. When power relocates, systems reorganize around new centers of control. And those outside these centers must adjust, whether they are prepared or not. This is why transitions are rarely experienced as neutral events. They are felt as pressure on economies, pressure on social stability, pressure on daily life. Yet even in these moments, the winners are not always the strongest or the loudest. They are the most adaptable. They recognize shifts early. They reduce dependency. They align with emerging structures rather than resisting them. The losers, on the other hand, wait. They wait for recovery. They wait for normality. They wait for the system to return to what it was. But power does not move backward. Once influence leaves a structure, it does not return out of nostalgia. It returns only if conditions change, and they rarely do. Understanding who gains and who loses is not about prediction. It is about awareness, because awareness creates options, and options determine resilience. In every transition, the greatest risk is not being on the losing side. It is not realizing which side you are on until the shift is already complete. The most important question facing the world today is not whether global power is shifting. That question has already been answered. The real question is who understands the shift early enough to adapt. History has never rewarded those who waited for certainty. It rewards those who recognized patterns while others were still debating explanations. Right now, the world is standing at a quiet turning point. Not a dramatic one, not a moment marked by a single event or a clear announcement, but a turning point nonetheless. The systems that once defined stability are being reinterpreted, the rules that once governed influence are being adjusted, and the balance that once felt permanent is becoming flexible. Most people will not notice this shift while it is happening. They will only recognize it later, when its effects become personal. When choices feel narrower, when costs feel heavier, when opportunities feel harder to reach. By then, the transition will no longer be theoretical. It will be lived reality. This is how history repeats itself. Not through sudden endings, but through quiet replacements. Not through collapse, but through realignment. Those who understand this do not panic. They prepare, they observe where power is moving, they question old assumptions, and they adjust before the system forces them to. This channel exists for that reason. To make invisible shifts visible, to explain global power before it reshapes daily life, and to give context to changes that are already underway. Welcome to World Power Explained. Because power does not announce itself, it moves quietly,